Well, hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 382, Zoho 25 and the Spaces of Productivity, recorded for Friday, November 21st, 2025 from Zenatta Consulting. I'm Tyler Colt.
And I'm Greg Belnap, and let's get right on into the show.
Let us do it. Busy week of news this week. Pretty big update to Zoho 1 that we'll be going over to lead off the show. Overall, really busy week. I don't always make this reference at the beginning, but check out the show notes or the newsletter. We had to cut a lot of stuff. They have been quite busy, so well worth checking those out if you want to see everything. But yeah, so Greg, we've got a good one ahead of us.
Yes, we do. And you answered already my first question of the show, which is that it's Zoho 25, I think is how you said it for the show title.
Think so. That's what I'm going with.
Because it's that, or I thought it was going to be Zwunty 25.
Yeah, let's actually go with that. I like that more. Let's lock that in.
Zwunty 25.
Yeah, and we'll include Zapikit in that. But with that, we do have a busy one, so we're going to jump right into the news after a quick word from our sponsor, us.
Zenatta's biggest sale of the year starts November 24th. Get any individual team training course for just $500, or unlock every course for only $1,000. But act fast, this Black Friday sale ends at midnight after Cyber Monday. One-time purchase, permanent access for your whole team. Visit zenatta.com/training.
All right, leading off with the big one here. So either Zoho 25 or Zwunty 25, however you want to say it. This is a new UI for Zoho 1 itself. This is like what you'll see when you actually go to, 1.zoho.com, right? A little while back, I think in 2021, they actually rolled out the beginnings of this new interface, which essentially allows you to get access to all the applications at one domain, right? Over on the left-hand side, you got all those various kind of jewels and icons. You can access them. This is kind of a redo of that UI, right? So the idea here is to, one, bring in all the applications like they have. Two, give you the ability to organize them into like spaces and environments where you can see them grouped up. So you might have like a sales space, a project space, right? And you're kind of bringing different applications under those. And then some big ones around unifying admin controls. So all the integrations, for example, between various apps going into one consolidated page. Easier management of domains if you do have multiple domains. A big one that isn't released yet, I was trying to find it, but this is coming soon, is unified client portals. So if you had, the CRM portal, the projects portal, maybe the books portal enabled, those no longer have to be at three different UIs. They're going to be three separate tabs, but they'll all be within one space and one sign-on for that client. So pretty big improvement there. Really across the board, and we actually got a video up on the channel here this week, doing a first look and kind of actually opening this thing up and playing around with it together. Couple other sneaky ones here. So Vani, which is their kind of competing product for like a Lucidchart or Miro, now included in Zoho 1. This was actually a really common piece of feedback that they got is like, why isn't this included in Zoho 1? It feels like it'd be a great fit and something that would be a cool value add. So they added that. RPA getting added to Zoho 1. I think this was already included. Log 365, there's actually a manage engine tool that they're going to be adding. Thrive, and then landing page. Again, both of these I do believe were already included, but just getting tied into the UI a little bit more officially. So pretty big one, honestly, across the board. I think the big ones that I'm excited about here are spaces, and just the ability to actually manage the applications more carefully. One of the pieces of feedback that I would always hear for the old UI is that like the apps on the left would basically show up if the user pins them, or they'll go into like the recently accessed tab. That might be fine if you have 10 users and you can just tell them, hey, pin these ones. These are the ones you want. For larger organizations, it's like, dude, as an admin, I need to be able to create groups of apps and like deploy them to roles and deploy them to people. And it looks like Spaces is kind of them stepping towards that. So I'm pretty excited for this. Being candid, I'm probably still going to access applications directly. That's just always how I'm probably going to keep doing things. But I do see the benefit of being able to consolidate everything into this one environment. The one other thing I didn't mention a lot about is the updates to the Zoho One dashboard. They did roll that out with the old UI update. No one, I think, has ever really used it because it's very limited in what you could put on it. You couldn't add anything custom. Now you can add some custom stuff. You can embed things. So if I wanted to take like a Zoho Analytics dashboard and just put it there, I could. So I think this will drive more adoption of this consolidated page with some of these new updates.
Yeah, certainly. It would be really nice to see more people using this kind of unified space. Obviously, because Zoho One, it is made to be used, for all the apps all at once. Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. The spaces, which is essentially like it's like tab groups, but for entire applications, right?
Yep,
that
exactly.
we'll be able to, you can kind of consolidate just the apps that I, as employee in this role, need to care about, which will make it a lot easier to use.
Yeah, and I will note, as you get started with this, one thing that I bumped into is as you're looking at those spaces, it's going to seem like you can't customize them. It's just because there are some default ones that basically include some apps that you can enable or disable for them. So like an example would be some companies use Desk as like a place to intake sales emails, right? Sales at Zenatta.com, that goes into a Desk environment where we can assign it, convert it to a deal, et cetera. If you go into the default sales space, you won't be able to enable Desk. So right out of the gate, I was like, that's really rigid, right? You can just add a custom space and then add whatever you want to it, right? So those limitations really only exist for some of their like suggested defaults, but you can go create whatever types of spaces you want. So yeah, I just want to put that out there because I didn't bump into it initially and was like, like this is just too limited. But it's not. You just need to create your own little custom space and then you can do whatever you'd like with it. So I do think this is going to make people happy. I'm excited to see them continue to work on the dashboard. That is one of the things that brings a lot of people to Zoho, is the idea of having all the data kind of visible together. Still kind of limited on the custom KPIs you can add. You can basically add something as a total, like 10 leads created last week, or you can add a list of those 10 leads that are created last week. So I can't make like a chart or anything like that quite yet. Analytics still exists, so just embed that for those. But just even being able to make things custom is a huge improvement, even if it's a little limited right now.
Yeah, and a big question mark around the unified client portals. Obviously, like you've already mentioned, it's not released yet. But I know they're saying it's a unified portal, but there's no way that it's actually like unifying the portals that exist in each of these apps. No. It's going to be it's going to be a separate Zoho One portal. And so I think the idea will probably be that like, hey, instead of inviting your customers to the CRM portal and the books portal and the projects portal, there will be a different. So if you do have people on like the CRM portal or on your Zoho Books vendor portal or something, I imagine you'd have to probably end up doing some kind of migration to this Zoho One unified panel. Yeah. I would have to assume that because you couldn't, or if people already had separate ones. Because these have to still exist as standalone apps that you can buy on their own, it's got to be a separate database, right?
Yeah, my gut check, for the YouTube viewers, this will be easier to follow along with, but if we look at this here, this is their image of the portal. I think it's going to be iframes. I think it's an SSO that is going to allow you to like iframe in your desk help center, your CRM portal, your, recruit portal, your books portal as tabs. But my gut check is each of those are going to have the same UI they used to have, right? It's just going to look like the projects portal, but jammed in there as an iframe. The big thing is, I mean, it's not ideal, right? Like in a perfect world, the portals kind of get all blended together.
Yeah.
I think for something like that, you're probably still going to need to look at like ZPortals or potentially a creator portal. But for a lot of people who might be just wanting to invite them to 2 of those apps, and they're like, man, I don't want to build a whole creator app just to show like contact info from CRM and open invoices from books in one login. I think this is going to solve for that quite well. From a user adoption side, I do think these UIs are going to be totally different, right? So like the CRM tab here is going to look like the CRM portal. The invoice tab is going to look like the books portal, but they can go to one place and log in and see all of it. So I think a pretty big step in the right direction, but I haven't got my hands on it yet. So I am curious to see what it will look like at the end of the day.
Yeah. So odds are, no matter what, there's got to be some kind of, if you already have people using one or more of these portals,
how are you going to get them over?
There's going to have to be, if it's moving to a single sign-on thing like you're talking about, then there's going to have to be some kind of migration of something, or like saying, hey guys, your CRM portal login is the one that will work. All of your books logins will be discarded or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Or people using multiple. Yeah. How do those get coalesced? Or do you just like terminate all those and re-add them in Zoho 1, right? As portal users, it could go that way as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that will be interesting to see. Overall, though, big step in the right direction. I'm excited to see it. Let us know in the comments down below what you think, if you've had a chance to play with it so far. I always like to hear from, the actual people who this is for, and see how they're getting on with it. So do give that a try and report back. We're curious to hear. Next one up here into our more standard news, CRM Community Digest for September 2025, Part 2. Little behind on this, given that it's November 20th. But these do sum up a lot of those updates that have happened recently in CRM. We've covered really most of these. So the new address field, profile controls for O365, some of those grid enhancements to Canvas, which to the people who left comments, I am going to make that video. I offered it up and people were like, yes, actually, that sounds great. Please do make a tutorial on that. And I have not. I know I'm failing you. We do always like to highlight the digest really more for these sections down below, the quick wins and dev corner. These are just like people helping people on the Zoho forums. Looks like Haiku Technical Support shows up a couple times here, so shout out to them. Just giving some of those helpful solutions out there. And then Dev Corner, good place to find code. Obviously, on our code share, we do put out a lot of our stuff, but there are more and more things that you can do. So we always like to highlight this, as I think it's a cool effort to kind of show some of those useful things that have just been shared for free on the Zoho forums.
Yep. And in the developers corner, they are tackling one of the biggest banes of the developer's existence, which is formatting of date time strings.
Yep.
Just know that if you are going to start dipping your toes into Deluge, date times, they're an uphill battle.
They're in the butt.
Cling to these developer corner stories early and often to try to save yourself from some headache. You will be banging your head against the wall otherwise.
Yeah, save it for later, even if you don't need it now, because you will end up copy and pasting this sequence right here at some point in your Zoho development journey. And then when you get into the ones that have the Z in them, like the desk date time stuff, oh man, no fun at all. So yeah, make sure to save that for later, so it will save you a headache. That would be a good code share to do eventually, Greg, if someone needs to be punished for something, is have them write up a full master's guide to dates and date times in Zoho for some of the core applications, because it is a pain in the butt, and they can be different, right? Like the desk and CRM have different date time formats, and it's like, Lord have mercy, why? Why why are they different? But they are, so it is an important one to get your hands on. Next one up here in the world of Zoho Creator. This is some upcoming updates for November. A lot of these are pretty minor. I actually almost filtered this one, except for the very first thing that I read when I actually read it, is the theme builder. So they are making some pretty big changes to the theme options within Zoho Creator. they have continuously added more and more themes over time. This one looks a bit more major in terms of just like the look and feel that these are going to enable. Dark mode also looks like it's going to be supported. I don't think it historically has. As a dark mode enjoyer myself, I'm always happy to see that. Outside of that, some other ones here, acyclic dependency apps to environments. I know that's really obvious when I say it, but I will explain it just in case anybody doesn't know what acyclic dependency apps are. Basically, this is applications that are connecting to other environments. So if you do have multiple applications that need to tie into each other, right? So here you're saying like, hey, I have an environment for employee management, and then I have a couple applications that are under that. I think the idea here, Greg, is really to just be able to share more data and information more easily between those. So if you had an app that like had all your employee data, maybe don't replicate that into your payroll app, just reference it from that other application, right? So just kind of like breaking down some of the barriers between applications where it makes sense. For us, we kind of put it all in one, has been our approach for our internal application, right? Like, but there are apps that you've even built as like an extension where you might want to reference in the future the employee data and not copy it, right? So makes life a little easier in those use cases.
Yep. And then eventually, like you said, they're going to start supporting cyclic apps in the future where, you know, like in their example, they have an employee management app that can feed into the human resources and sales, but the human resources and sales apps do not feed back into the employee management app. But in the future, they're going to make it so that you can add, because say the human resources one could add somebody now into the employee management app.
Which would make sense. You know, you'd want to
which would make sense. So that will be in a future update.
Got it. Couple other updates here. Syncing to external calendars via an iCal feed. That is definitely nice. Comments for portal users. So if you do, this would be useful for us. People that log in, you've always been able to do comments for internal users. Portal users can now add those as well. We do a lot of work with Creator as a portal platform. So that one I think is pretty useful. Just because again, like it gives a less formalized way to share information from a portal user to an internal. New mobile UI, really nice there. Data sync for integration fields. So can you walk me through this one, Greg? I mean, we've always had integration fields. Is this kind of like the pull down that we got from CRM, where you can kind of just more easily yank some additional data from that lookup?
Yeah. So what they're talking about in this data sync is when so let's say I make a form that has a integration field to accounts in the CRM. If I open up that dropdown, it is looking at a live view of all the accounts that are in my CRM. And let's say that I pick the Zilker Corporation as the account on my creator record. If in the CRM, I then change the name of Zilker Corporation to just Zilker Corp, then previously, although the ID number stays the same, but if you went into Creator, the display value would still say Zilker Corporation from when you originally selected it.
Gotcha.
But now, if you use the data sync now the data sync in the integration field will now periodically, or you can manually now trigger a pull and update so that all the display values will match. That's what I understand is.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're talking about here, because I think it was always pulling a live version of like when you are actually like opening the drop down. I think that was always a live connection version. But I think it's saying that with records that have already been created, it will now push those updates into those integration fields.
Got it. Very nice. That feels like a pretty big update, honestly, then, because a lot of the times Creator is used in reference to other Zoho apps, using those lookups. So being able to keep things a little bit more trued up is definitely a pretty big one. And then last but not least, a bunch of new connectors for Zoho Creator. They basically have, similar to almost like analytics, you've got these built-in tools that Zoho provides where you can just immediately and easily tie in the sync of a third-party application. These are just available for Creator 6, but they've added a bunch of new ones: LinkedIn, Airtable, NetSuite, MailChimp, etc. They say they've got 1,200 overall. So always, whenever we're kind of like scoping out a project with someone, we always try to look at things like that, because if you don't need to pay for a custom integration to get built, then don't, right? Just use something that is off the shelf. We always recommend at least trying to start there. All right, next one up here for Zoho projects: user-based workflow rules and webhooks. So this is really like the module users can now trigger automations, right? We've always been able to do it on updates to projects and tasks. Now it's going to be supported for users. So something like, hey, if a user gets updated in some way, maybe they're invited to the portal, maybe they delete themselves from the portal or deactivate it, you can notify certain people. Again, pretty niche use case, but definitely for larger teams that need to manage stuff like this, could be quite nice. Now, does it say here, Greg, if this is just for internal users, or is this supporting client users as well, I wonder? It doesn't really seem to actively specify. I do see like here it's showing portal users. So I would assume this is just for your portal users, like the internal people who are actually permissioned for the app. But maybe something that could be supported for client users as well in the future, because I could see a use case there for making sure that your clients are getting access properly as a bit of like a, trust but verify process.
Yeah, that is a good question. I'm taking a look at the more detailed help article about user workflow rules, and they also are not. It's just vague enough that I think I would err on the side of assuming that this is internal users. Like you said, your people,
your team.
Customers.
Got it.
But
I would assume something that could be added for client portals later. Minor one right now, but a cool one to keep an eye on for later. FSM, we actually haven't talked about FSM in a little while. So they're now doing multi-asset support for work orders, estimates, etc. What does this mean? So an asset in FSM, let's say you sell generators, and you sell a generator to somebody, and we know that it's at their warehouse, right? That generator is the asset. It is like a serialized or unique instance of an item that you sell that is on site with a customer at a place. Now, inside of FSM, you've been able to launch like a work order or a service appointment that connects to an asset. This is like your annual servicing, etc. The challenge has been, it's just a single lookup. You can just pick one, right? You're just picking one asset at that place to go and do services on. Those who do service-based work are probably immediately thinking, what if there's two generators? What do you do? And it's like, well, there's not been a great answer to that, right? It's like, well, you could split your work orders into two, right? And like, maybe in some cases, people prefer that. They say, hey, I want a work order for each generator. And then they sign off that individual one has been serviced. A lot of people are going to say, can I just put the two generators on one work order and have them sign off that both are done? Now you can, right? So essentially, you can now connect at a line item level the assets to a service line item. So here they're basically looking like, hey, AC tune-up for the central AC unit, filter replacement for the split AC, and an inspection for the heat pump, right? So basically just taking this from a single line item level into a actual, or not line item at all, a single lookup at the work order level into the line items, whether it's for services or for parts. So if you actually had to put like a replacement part onto an asset, you could associate that. So pretty big update. I'm excited to see this because this is oftentimes what you need to do. I mean, like, I'm just thinking, if I had like an HVAC company come to my house and do annual servicing, like they might touch the AC unit and the heat unit, right? Like, and as a customer, I'd rather just get one document that says we did them both, right? Like, so it feels like it lines up with how the real world works a little bit better than just choosing one asset at a time.
Yeah, I guess So I guess my one question is, I guess it would be nice. I know that I'm splitting hairs here, but if you could now even put multiple assets on a single line item, even just because if my service is AC, because on this one you have an AC tune-up goes with this asset, so you have to have a service for each asset. So you might just need to structure the way you define your services the way that this is right now to say like, hey, an AC tune-up, you can do that on one unit. So you just wouldn't want to say like that, like, oh, if my service includes working these three different assets, they would have to exist as three separate line items. So obviously you wouldn't.
Yeah.
And if the way that you price your services is, like one service should cover three assets, I guess you could have like one version of the service that is the actual full price of it, and then maybe have like a service that is like an add-on service that doesn't have a price, so that you could have line items for each asset, but they're all under the same like service package. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it is something too, like some of those types of changes. We have worked with clients before to automate the changeover, where like you send them an estimate for $1,000 for AC servicing. When they accept it, we auto convert it into a work order and kind of split it out, into like multiple line items. So you might be able to automate it that way, because there is a justification to say like, hey, I'm just doing AC servicing, right? And whether it's 2 or 3, we're just going to do them. That's how we're structured. So not solving for every use case, but surely solving for more use cases.
Yes, absolutely. So. That's the thing is that like no matter how many people you accommodate with a change in customization, there's always somebody who needs something a little more specific. There's always
a guy like Greg who come up with it's never going to cover everyone, but it covers a lot more, and we're happy to see it.
It's really good. Yeah.
Next one up here is Zoho Flow getting connected to Bigin. So essentially, Zoho Flow actions now, are going to be able to affect Bigin. This is kind of like, in CRM, they put in that there's Zoho Flow actions, or what they call them, where it's not Zoho Flow. It's separate from Zoho Flow, and it's baked into an app, and the credit system is split out. So you have a bunch of Flow credits, you can't use them in Flow actions. I'm honestly being candid, I've never really understood this. I get it from the perspective of putting it in the app. I don't get splitting the credit system. It just has never really made sense, because it is just Zoho Flow. But this is basically like a type of workflow, right? So like, hey, when something happens, we're going to make a meeting on Zoho Calendar. We're going to run a mail merge automation. And this basically just gets tied into that like workflow style page that exists in Bigin, or in CRM that exists in CRM. So very cool. No harm, no foul for me. I've always just kind of continued to use Zoho Flow. I also just like the kind of flowchart UI of it, especially for longer like multi-step automations. Zoho Flow Actions probably built more for like a quick thing, like add a meeting to a calendar, or add them to a segment in campaigns or a mailing list, etc. So it is cool. I find myself gravitating towards just Zoho Flow itself. But maybe that's.
But I definitely understand the appeal of continuing to have all of your automations in one place, because that's a good
point. That's
a frustrating thing that we deal with sometimes, where, hey, something funky is going on with one of our automations, and we're like, okay, let's check all the workflow rules in the CRM. Is it one of those? I don't know. Okay, let's go to Zoho Flow. Is there a Zoho Flow that's acting a little weird? I don't know. All right, let's go take a look at books. Is there something in books that looks a little weird? So I can understand that, like, if you're like, hey, I just need, everything is still being triggered just from Bigin. So I'd still like to see all of my automations and configure all of my automations in Bigin. So I can definitely see the appeal there.
And I guess, if I play devil's advocate against the point that I was making, is especially thinking about Bigin specifically, Like you're going to be doing simpler automations out of there most of the time anyways, right? Like if we look at these examples, like adding something to Zoho Calendar is not like a 10-step automation, right? We're like, a lot of times when you're using the full suite of apps, it's like, okay, a ticket gets closed. We're going to check CRM. We're going to get their billing rate. We're going to reach over to Zoho Books and make this invoice. Then we're going to, once it's paid, we're going to, blah, 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 right? Where I think a lot of these Bigin ones are going to be simpler, where this different UI might make more sense. And, less places to go is definitely a nice to have. But wait, there's more for Bigin this week. So merge field support for auto-filled forms. This is where, you've got Zoho Forms, but lots of applications have their own form builder just baked in. Bigin is no different. So here, essentially what it looks like, Greg, is that like you're merging in from a record, right? Certain fields that you're going to autofill into the form if you were to like send it out via email or something like that. Is that kind of what I'm understanding here?
Well, I think it's looking for, or you're creating fields that are going to be autofilled on submission, meaning when the person has finished filling out the form and they click on submit, what's going to happen? So you can almost think of them a little bit as like formula fields here. So the ones that they have in their examples, for example, the deal name, that's a field that you have probably like hidden on the form that the customer doesn't actually see, but it's going to take whatever they filled in from company name and first name, last name, whatever, and it's going to concatenate those to create the deal name. Or like they have another example of a full name field where you're just concatenating first name, space, last name, or just paste in their home, their company phone number into the home phone field on the contact, that kind of thing. It's the shuffling or combining of values that they filled in on the form that you are then rearranging or combining as they're being pushed into Bigin's records.
And I guess one of the big effective downstream changes of this is that historically, if I wanted to have a Bigin form that was going to create a deal, I would have to have a deal name field on that form that the customer is going to fill out. Customers like, well, I don't know, man, like deal name, like, it's not like what they're not thinking about deal name. So you can basically say, hey, don't ask them that anymore. Let's just define that based on other things that they've added on that form submission. So got it. That makes a lot of sense. Cool. Yeah, very nice one for Bigin forms. Still just chugging along. That app just gets bigger and bigger over time with more and more functionality. We're still CRM heads internally, but I do respect a little Bigin usage here and there. So with that, I think we're ready to wrap up the news for this week. So let's jump over to Club Zenatta and check out our code share of the week. All right. This one comes from Andrew, and it is creating Google Drive folders via Deluge with a simple API call. It is something we do really often, Greg, with WorkDrive, but there are people that are using other file management tools. That's all good. Sometimes it makes sense to keep what you've got. And this is basically like pretty plug and play, right? If I just want to make a Google Drive folder, copy, paste, swap out some of your authentication, and you're off to the races, right?
Yep, exactly. Basically, Andrew's showing you here what are the weird metadata things you need to put in the headers, like the mime type, the content type, that sort of thing. But yeah, he's got a folder name and a parent folder ID that he's hard coded into his text here. That part you would want to replace with whatever variables you're going to be using. Yep. But also, big shout out to Andrew for including some good error catching in here to catch if you haven't put in a parent folder ID or a folder name. If something is not there, it's not even going to bother making the Google API call, saving you some credits. That's nice. Yep. And just make sure that you have all of the right information before you go in. But yeah, pretty simple plug and play one there.
Yeah, very nice. And then really last step here in a lot of use cases would be, from the response of creating that folder, grabbing the URL, doing a quick update back to your deal or your account or wherever you want that like external link to live. That's just going to depend on where you want that to go. But pretty simple from there on out. You're just going to get from create response and then define that as a mapped parameter, use an update record call to put it back inside of Zoho.
Yeah. I guess one of the little PSA with this one, there's no longer a Google Drive specific connection in CRM. If you're making this in the CRM, which I know is probably the most common version, but there is just an umbrella Google connection you can do. But I believe that connection only connects to that can only connect to folders that have been created by that connection. So it's a little weird where if you wanted to expand on this one to like search for existing files or folders, it won't find any files or folders that were created before you made the connection.
Got it.
It only has access to folders or files that CRM to Google connection makes. If you wanted something that could read all files and folders, you would have to create a custom service connection to Google. So, but most of our folks are dealing with that anyway. So if you are dealing with that, hey, we know how to do that. Come find us.
Yeah, and as a pro tip for those who are, newer to the Zoho ecosystem, if you're trying to do a third-party integration, before you go down the rabbit hole of trying to make your own OAuth connection, check if it's a supported connection. Because when it is, it sure is going to make life easier. Now, there can be hang-ups with them. Like, depending on how you have NetSuite set up, for example, their pre-baked connection has to be reset every set. You'll run into some weirdness here and there, limitations, but they do work for the majority of use cases. And then you're not having to fumble around with what I've always considered the hard part, which is like OAuth, secret keys, refresh tokens, all that. It's like, hey, once I'm through that part, I can write just about any code that needs to be written in Deluge. But personally, I do struggle with that part. So I'm an avid user of pre-built connections because then you're just like doing a quick double sign-in situation and you're good, right? And as long as you're on an account that has those permissions, then you should be able to get whatever you need done. So always check there first before you go crazy trying to do a machine-to-machine OAuth connection. This code share, as with all others, are over on club.zenatta.com. That is just the free community where Zoho nerds help Zoho nerds. We put all the news there. We put the things we noticed, the news that isn't news. And we also have our Q&A for the show, which we do kind of pick some of those out to get answered. Totally free. Just head on over to club.zenatta.com and sign up. Just need your email so that we can tell that you're not going to spam crypto ads on the platform. Though that's getting less popular now that they're kind of entering a bit of a down cycle. So we might have less of those coming through, which would be nice.
Cross.
With that, let's jump over to zenatta.com and check out what's new on the website. All right, another case study. Not stopping yet. This one comes from AFS Group. This is a pretty large flooring company here in the US, more than 500 people on the platform. This was primarily a CRM build out as well as an integration to some third-party tools. Lots of deal governance and structure around how deals need to go. A lot of like contract back and forths and things like that. These are generally like large flooring build outs. Where there is a lot of contract negotiation and dependencies. Migration from a couple legacy systems, RLM and Memphis CRM, moving over customer, task, pipeline data, etc. And then, of course, as we almost always do, lots of analytics build out to get that across the line. So big build out here. We've worked with them, I think, since about the beginning of this year, give or take. And yeah, they've just been onboarding more and more people onto the platform. Big part of their thing, and we do see this a lot, is this idea where you have an industry, in this case, flooring, and then you have a lot of these tools that are like built for flooring companies, right? That are, specifically designed for their needs. And it's pros and cons. Like a lot of the times those tools do have things that they do really, really well, right? Like for roofing companies, a really common one is this tool called AccuLinks, right? And look, I'll be honest with you, the way it does quotes, it's pretty great for roofing companies, right? The amount of different kind of like dials you can turn natively, no custom build, is really cool. Using it to sell and market and manage everything that isn't quoting, not so good, right? And so our goal is always to figure out, of these vertical tools, what are the things we can build, within a reasonable amount of time and budget. There are cases where we integrate with them, and it's like, hey, like I know in one case for a roofing company, we just gave them an open quote button on a deal and an open AccuLinks quote, and everything else was just done inside of Zoho. But it is something I see more and more of where people are like, man, I just feel like this industry-specific tool I'm using is just behind in a lot of ways. It has this one special thing that it does, but everything else, it's like, meh. So worth a conversation. We always try to be candid on those, and we do tell prospective clients pretty often that's like, look, that part of this is really cool. Maybe we integrate that part and replace the rest. I had one a long time ago. They want us to replace this tool called Company Camp. I don't know if you've ever bumped into that one, Greg. It's like for taking images via a phone of like, I'll use roofing company again. Like you get someone to come service your roof. They take all the pictures, they draw on them. Like, here's the part that's bad. Here's the part that's good. It's great. It's a really good application. And someone wanted us to rebuild it in Creator. And it's like, hypothetically, I can build you a thing where you can take pictures, put them in Creator. They can later be annotated, blah, blah, blah. Or I'll just write a little bit of code that makes a company cam folder for each closed won deal, and we'll link it. And it's like, you can just use that really cool thing that you really like, but then still get all the benefits of Zoho. So it's always just about finding what makes sense to move over. In this case, I think a lot of it made sense to move over because these tools didn't have that much special sauce. They were just good at marketing. And so, there was pretty much all benefit to just get out of them.
Yep.
But big shout out to the team. We appreciate them a lot. We love working with them, and looking forward to keeping that rolling. With that, let's jump over to youtube.com/Zenatta and check out our tips of the week. All right, first one here. It's been a busy week on the channel. So first one here is actually a kind of walkthrough and demo of Zoho POS. This is formerly known as Zakia. They decided to rebrand it to POS so that people would know what it is. I think that was smart. Honestly, pretty solid. I mean, the ability to create different locations, register different devices or kind of registers at those locations, being able to define some of the ways that different products are sold. Like, hey, this is something that I weigh on a scale, and then it checks out based on that price. So pretty cool. Obviously, the direct tie-in to Zoho Books and Analytics and Inventory going to be great. The ability to open and close sessions where you're basically saying, hey, the register had $200 to start the day. The register has $400 to start the day. We had $210 worth of cash transactions. Where's the $10? Right? That whole type of thing that you need to manage at a register. The one thing I did notice as I'm going through here, and Wayne kind of had a similar impression, our director of marketing, is I'm not seeing a lot of like hardware tie-ins. Like, I don't know like what receipt printer you would use with this. I don't know. There's like one card reader that's supported, but it wasn't clear if there's like a physical product to go along with that. So that I think is the one thing they're going to have to flesh out for the US market. Like, obviously they're in kind of direct competition with someone like Square. So I don't know if it's on the table, but the go-to-market here is going to be tricky because people already have registers, and they already have card readers, and they already have receipt printers, and they already have scales, and you kind of need to like integrate with all of those physical options to make it easy for somebody to switch. So I'm curious to see that just from like a go-to-market perspective. There are some barriers to entry for a product that has to interact with the physical world that just aren't there with like a CRM or like an email marketing tool, right? It's like, yeah, just bring over your list, bring over your email templates, pretty easy. In this case, it's like, no, go buy a new cash register. Some people are going to go, no, I'm not going to do that. So I am curious to see that just from like an adoption point of view. But I will say it's pretty good, at least on like the back end operations side of it, compared to like, I've been deep into something like Square, and it has items and you can check out. The API is awful. Like actually integrating Square to other things is just it's not a good platform for that. So I do think they've got upside to using it, but they are going to have to figure out the integration to the physical world in a much more robust way, I think, to make it easier for people to switch.
Yeah, well, I mean, even just looking at POS's home, like sales homepage right now, it still says India's modern retail POS. So I think they're still pretty in the actual like selling this as a full package. I think it's still mostly geared towards India at the moment. I think they still have some some things to figure out before they can really explode on the US market.
Yep. I do, though, as like on a longer term basis, I think it's going to make a lot of sense because again, we've worked with a lot of them. A lot of the API functionality for these POS platforms is just not good. Like the ability, I mean, especially I'm thinking mostly of Square, but even like Clover, like, yeah, it's there, but it's funky and odd. And, I think for a lot of people that are all in on Zoho already, and then they're kind of just like manually reconciling a bunch of Square transactions all the time. Now, the idea of buying a new card reader to move over might be totally fine, right? Just to like get out of that environment. I'll also highlight, of course, I would assume Zoho Payments is going to come into the mix on this. Zoho has always flirted with the idea of making hardware. It's always been something that, Sridhar, former CEO, now CSO, has kind of had their eyes on. And I think like a card reader using payments would be a good first thing to try to make, right? And sell. And I could see that working. I mean, like, if you're already on Zoho for all these other things and, you've talked to someone like us and we've given you the spiel on how annoying Square is to integrate with and, buy a couple card readers for your 3 retail locations, I could see it working. And I think you mentioned on one of the last shows, like with a lot of tap to pay options, if you can get that supported, that's going to cover a lot of people's usage as well, right? So there's a path. It's just going to be a little trickier than like, just move your leads over and you're using a new CRM now, right? Little bit more to get done, but I think it's well worth the effort and could work really well over time.
Also, just for all of my folks out there who are sad that it's changed from Zakia to Zoho POS, I have good news for you. Looking around, the API base URL is still api.zakia.com. So if you're going to be making any API calls to Zoho POS, you'll get to use its original name of Zakia. So don't worry, she's still in there.
The legacy lives on. Also on the channel is a deeper dive and demo of that new Zoho One UI that we went through today. So essentially, I go through like setting up the spaces, looking at the dashboards, looking at the new admin panel with those kind of consolidated integrations. So again, I think this is a big step in the right direction. Video coming soon will be on that unified client portal. I really want to get my hands on that and just like invite myself as a client and log in and just see what it looks like, right? So do expect that one. Just not supported quite yet, but the moment it is, I will record it and Freddie will edit it and we will put it up on the channel because I'm really curious in that. We do a lot of work with portals ourselves, and oftentimes it's one of those funny conversations that we'll have on the sales side of the company where it almost seems like we're trying to make less money with the client because we do a lot of exploration and try to make sure a portal is worth it, right? Because if you're going to go and build like a multi-app portal environment in Creator, that is not a quick build. Like to actually get that to a level that's good enough for a user to want to use it, It's not particularly simple or easy. And then ZPortals is a pretty good deal, but also requires a lot of configuration and decision making, and like any change inside of CRM requires a change inside of that. And so having something that's just like included, really low barrier to entry, really low cost, or even if it's like, hey, we're going to use the Zoho One portal for a year because it's cheap. And then if a lot of people are using it, we'll invest in building something custom, right? Like I love that as an option that we can present to people at just a really low cost point. So I will get that out to you guys as soon as I can, because I know that that's one that people are probably going to have quite a lot of questions on, and a lot of interest for. So we will be getting that out as soon as humanly possible. As always, over at youtube.com/Zenatta, that's where all the videos are, all the podcasts, all the tips, all the news, all. So head on over there and check it out. We'd love to have you subscribe if you think it's useful for you. Make sure to like the videos as well, because as we all know, subscribing barely makes YouTube recommend a video to anyone. So we'll make sure to like and comment and all that. You know the drill. You've heard the spiel a million times. Words aren't coming easily to me today for some reason. So we're gonna leave it at that. I think, did we do our angel for 30K, Freddie? We didn't, did we? There it is. 30,000 subscribers. There it is. So yeah, join the club. We'd love to have you over there, and let us know in the comments what type of videos you do want to see. We do read through all of those and reply to as many as we can. So check that out at youtube.com/Zenatta. I think with that, ready to jump into one of our favorite sections of the show, Ask Zenatta Anything About Zoho. Back to the right-handed guitar for this week. It's impressive that you're ambidextrous on the guitar there.
Yeah, it felt weird the other way, like someone else was playing.
All right. So, question of the week comes from Dave over on YouTube. This is on the how to use quotes in Zoho CRM tutorial. Simple question, straight to the point. I appreciate it, Dave. How do I add a product image to the quote? A question that we do get pretty often and that isn't super obvious. Now, Greg, let me know if I'm wrong here. I don't think you can on the quote templates, right? Those ones that go into like the inventory templates. Yes, you can. Oh, I'm happy to be wrong.
I tested it right before we started recording. Yes, if you add if you add a product image into like the product image field on the CRM record, right? So you can't have a custom image field that you add images to. It has to be, the native system defined image field for a product.
That's all right.
Yes.
You'd probably put it there anyways. Makes sense to put it there. Yeah.
Yep. So you just, when you go to add a merge field, right, there's that drop down at the top where you pick the module you're pulling from. You just need to pick from the products module, and then the product image is all the way at the bottom of that list. So it's just hidden very well, and it'll just look like a merge tag like anything else. It'll just say product image or whatever. But I did run a test with a product image, and sure enough, shows up.
Nice.
Shows up there.
Cool.
So
add it to the product image, merge it in. You might need to play a little bit with like the image size to make sure that it doesn't come into the quote, like, 'cause it's going to go into that line items table essentially. And so there might be a correct number of pixels by pixels to make it look proper on the quote template itself. Like 256 by 256 is pretty common.
Yeah, there were no options to like edit the image itself. So you'll want to make sure your image is a reasonable size going into the CRM there.
Don't put that screen 4K. That might look a little wonky.
I guess that does present a bit of an issue of, you'll need to decide, are the images going into my product image icons, do I want those to be put into print, to be little images on as line items, or do I want them higher resolution and bigger so that they can be displayed on my website or something like that, pulling from there? So you'll have to choose one or the other.
sometimes people, when they have those types of digital assets, will have multiple versions of them, right? Like we've got different versions of our logo for use in different types of spaces or sizings. And but and a lot of times too, if you had like, let's say all you had were a bunch of 4K high quality images, I'm sure you can find some type of compression tool that'll turn it to 256 by 256. Like you'll be able to get there. But yeah, so good find, Greg. I honestly, when I read the question, assumed it was going to be a custom mail merge. You put it in Work Drive, use the external shareable URL, because we'll do that on some like proposal generation. Really nice. Just use the normal one, put it in the profile image, and you're good. So awesome. Nice to have good news.
I was very pleasantly surprised myself.
Yeah. Awesome. So with that, I think we're ready to wrap up the show here for this week. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to get in touch with us over at Zenatta, just head on over to zenatta.com and click on book a meeting. On the website is also where you'll find complete episodes of the show, as well as links to all the stories we discussed today.
And if you want clean code for free, go to Club Z. Club.zenatta.com is where you can get all of those snippets and more. And if you want to get your team trained up in the core Zoho apps in less than 7 days, head over to zenatta.com/training and get signed up today.
And as always, we appreciate when you like and subscribe here on YouTube, as well as your choice of podcast app. We will see you next Friday. Made it through. My brain is just not working today, Greg. I don't know what's going on.
Your brain at 20% is most people's 80%. So we're happy to have you show up at all.
Yeah, I can live with that. Thank you, Greg. I needed the ego boost. That'll send me into the weekend properly.